Imagine waking up tomorrow morning. You head to the ATM to grab some cash for coffee, but the screen flashes an error, out of service. Okay, weird. You walk into a grocery store and the shelves look like a hurricane just passed through, completely bare. You open your wallet, look at the cash inside, and realize it's now worth less than the paper it's printed on. It sounds like the opening scene of a post-apocalyptic movie, right? Or maybe a dystopian novel? But here's the scary part. For millions of people around the world, this isn't fiction. It's history. It's reality. We all know what happens when a person goes broke. You lose your house, your car, your credit score tanks. When a company goes bust, they hang a closed sign on the door, fire the staff, and liquidate the furniture. But what on earth does it mean for an entire country to go bankrupt? Does the country just disappear? Do they put a for sale sign on the presidential palace?
Today, we're going to dive deep into the rabbit hole of sovereign default. We're going to break down exactly what it is, why it happens, and the terrifying chain reaction that follows when a nation admits we can't pay. First off, let's clear the air. The term national bankruptcy is a bit of a misnomer. It's not like Chapter 11 or personal bankruptcy where you stand in front of a judge. When a country defaults, there's no global courtroom. No repo man is coming to tow away the country's aircraft carriers or foreclose on the White House. The country still exists, the borders remain, and the government buildings are still standing. So if the physical stuff is safe, what actually breaks? Trust, or in financial terms, credit. It's the moment the global financial markets look at a nation and say, yeah, you guys aren't good for the money.
When investors, other governments, and massive global banks decide that a country is a deadbeat, everything changes instantly. In the biz, we call this a sovereign default. Simply put, it's a government raising its hand and saying, we can't pay our debts, or sometimes we won't pay. The kicker? In the world of international politics, there's no global police to force them to pay. Creditors can't send in the army to seize assets. But that lack of enforcement actually makes the consequences scarier. Because once your credit is shot, nobody, and I mean nobody, will lend you a dime. Imagine if your credit score hit zero overnight. You can't get a mortgage, you can't get a car loan, you can't even get a credit card. Now apply that to a whole country. The government suddenly faces a massive cash crunch. They still need to pay teachers, keep hospitals running, maintain the military, and import medicine.
But the bank account is dry and the credit lines are cut. Desperate times call for desperate measures. Governments might start selling off the family silver. We're talking about leasing major ports to foreign powers for 99 years, selling off state-owned companies for pennies on the dollar, or giving away mining rights. It's a fire sale of national sovereignty, and recovering from that loss of trust can take decades. So how do nations end up in this nightmare scenario? It's rarely just one thing, but there are four usual suspects. Suspect number one, the debt trap. This is the classic biting off more than you can chew. A government borrows heavily during good times. The economy is booming, tax revenue is up, and everyone feels like a genius. But debt is like a snowball rolling down a hill. It gets bigger and faster. Eventually, the interest payments alone start eating up a huge chunk of the national budget.
The government enters a Ponzi scheme phase, borrowing new money just to pay off old debts. We call this rolling over the debt. It works until it doesn't. Creditors aren't stupid. They smell blood in the water. They start demanding higher interest rates to cover the risk. This forces the country to borrow at even higher rates, creating a death spiral until the music stops and nobody is willing to lend anymore. Suspect number two, the currency mismatch, aka the original sin. This is a huge issue for developing nations. They often borrow money in foreign currencies, usually the US dollar, because it's stable. Investors prefer getting paid back in dollars, not some volatile local currency. But here's the catch. The government collects taxes in local currency. If the exchange rate is stable, you're fine. But if the local currency crashes, you're toast. Imagine you owe $100. Yesterday, that cost you 100 units of your local money. Today, your currency tanks, and now you need 200 units to buy that same $100 bill. Your debt didn't change, but your ability to pay it just got cut in half. Suspect number three, external shocks. War, pandemics, or a crash in commodity prices. This hits countries that put all their eggs in one basket. Take Venezuela. They bet the house on oil. When oil prices collapsed, their income evaporated overnight. Combine that with corruption and bad policy, and you get a catastrophe. In Venezuela's case, it led to hyperinflation. The government tried to print its way out of trouble, turning their currency into confetti. Suspect number four, politics. Sometimes a country goes broke because it chooses to. A new government comes into power and says, that debt the previous guy took out, that's illegitimate. We aren't paying it.
Ecuador did this in 2008.
They technically had the cash, but they defaulted on purpose as a political statement. It's rare, but it shows that default is sometimes a choice, not just a necessity. Okay, so the government defaults. What happens next? It usually starts quietly, maybe a missed interest payment or a polite request to restructure the debt. But Wall Street doesn't do polite. The credit rating agencies, Moody's, S&P, Fitch, immediately downgrade the country's rating to junk status. Junk isn't just an insult, it's a legal trigger. Major institutional investors like pension funds are legally required to hold only safe assets. Once a country hits junk status, these funds have to sell. This triggers a massive sell-off. Stocks tank, bonds become worthless, and capital flees the country faster than a cheetah. The currency collapses. And this is where it hits you, the regular citizens.
Since no country is 100% self-sufficient, the price of imports skyrockets. Oil, medicine, machine parts, wheat, everything gets expensive. You see it at the grocery store first. Imported goods double in price, then domestic goods follow suit because they rely on imported fuel or raw materials. Inflation starts running hot, but your paycheck, that stays the same. Or worse, you lose your job. Panic sets in. People think, if I leave my money in the bank, it's going to be worthless, or the government might freeze it. So everyone runs to the bank at the same time. This is a classic bank run. Banks operate on a fractional reserve system. They don't have everyone's cash in the vault. When everyone shows up at once, the system breaks. Banks close their doors. ATMs go dark. The economy grinds to a halt. Companies can't get loans for payroll, so they fire workers.
Unemployment spikes, consumption drops, and businesses fail. It's a vicious cycle that can destroy a nation's standard of living in a matter of weeks. We're talking about real suffering here. Shortages of insulin and antibiotics, rolling blackouts because the government can't pay for fuel. Social unrest explodes. People take to the streets. Riots, looting, and political instability become the new normal. Can a country come back from the dead? Yes, but it's going to hurt. Step 1, the haircut. The government sits down with creditors and says, look, you can't get blood from a stone. You can take 50 cents on the dollar, or you can get nothing. This is called a haircut. Creditors hate it, and sometimes vulture funds, hedge funds that buy distressed debt, will sue the country for years to get full payment. Step 2, the bailout. Enter the IMF, International Monetary Fund.
They are the lender of last resort. They'll give the country a lifeline of cash, but it comes with strings attached. Heavy steel cables, actually. We call this austerity. The IMF says, we'll lend you money, but you have to cut spending, raise taxes, fire government workers, and privatize state assets. It's bitter medicine. The citizens usually hate it because it makes life harder in the short term. Pensions get slashed, utility bills go up. But without that cash, the government stops functioning entirely. Step 3, structural reform. You have to fix the leak before you fill the bucket. This means fighting corruption, fixing tax collection, and diversifying the economy. This takes years, sometimes decades. Step 4, regaining trust. This is the hardest part. Once you burn a bridge, it takes a long time to rebuild. Markets have a long memory. Some countries, like Uruguay, manage to bounce back and become stable.
Others, like Argentina, seem to be stuck in a revolving door of default. Now the million-dollar question. Could this happen to a powerhouse like the USA, Japan, or the UK? Theoretically, yes. Practically, it's complicated. Rich countries have a superpower, seigniorage. The US borrows in US dollars. The US prints US dollars. Technically, the US can never run out of money to pay its debts because it can just print more. Sure, that would cause massive inflation, but it avoids a technical default. Japan has a debt-to-GDP ratio of over 250%, the highest on the planet, yet no one is panicking. Why? Because most of that debt is held by Japanese citizens and the central bank, in their own currency. It's all in the family. But rich countries aren't immune to stupidity. Take the US debt ceiling drama. Every few years, Congress plays a game of chicken.
They threaten to default not because they can't pay, but for political leverage. In 2011, this got so bad that S&P actually downgraded the US credit rating. Or look at the Eurozone. Countries like Greece or Italy use the euro, but they don't control the printing press. The European Central Bank does. That means they are effectively borrowing in a foreign currency. During the Eurozone crisis, Greece couldn't just print its way out. They had to endure brutal austerity. Even the UK had a scare recently. In 2022, a sudden announcement of unfunded tax cuts sent the British pound into a tailspin, forcing the central bank to intervene. It was a wake-up call that even G7 nations can be punished by the markets if they act recklessly. So, where do we go from here? the horizon looks a bit stormy. Global debt is at record levels, government, corporate, and household. When interest rates were near zero, this was manageable.
But now, with the Federal Reserve and other central banks keeping rates higher to fight inflation, the bill is coming due. Developing nations are getting squeezed from three sides: strong dollar, high rates, and capital flight. Add to that the slowing growth in China, geopolitical tensions like the war in Ukraine, and the looming threat of climate change destroying infrastructure. We're also seeing a shift in technology. As AI and automation take over, the old ladder of start with cheap manufacturing and grow might be broken. So, what's the takeaway? It's easy to think of sovereign default as just numbers on a screen, but we need to remember the human cost. When a country goes bust, the rich usually find a way to protect their assets. It's the regular folks, the salarymen, the shopkeepers, the retirees who get crushed. Their life savings evaporate, and their future is put on hold.
For governments, the lesson is clear. Fiscal responsibility isn't just a buzzword, it's a survival strategy. For us individuals, we can't control national monetary policy, but we can keep our eyes open. Diversify your assets. Don't keep every egg in one basket. But most importantly, we need to understand that the economy is interconnected. A default in South America or Africa isn't just their problem. In a globalized world, financial contagion spreads faster than a virus. National bankruptcy is a tragedy, but it's also a powerful reminder. It reminds us of how fragile our modern financial system really is. It's a system built entirely on trust. And trust, once broken, is the hardest currency to earn back. Thanks for watching. If you found this deep dive interesting, smash that like button and subscribe for more insights into the hidden mechanics of our world. See you in the next one.